Okay. So I decided something that I'd like to do in time would be to do one on temperature, using the Bureau of Meteorology statistics, knowing where they were to be found on the internet at the BOM site. I'd done the rainfall 1 year before, so I decided to do the temperature one. And to find out, well, let's do an analysis of the temperatures. And the Bureau of Meteorology reports for every month of every year the median statistic, the median reading, the middle reading, right in the middle. Just as many highs, just as many low for that month. And they're reported as the maximums and the minimums. So I decided to do a study on those, a detailed long-term study that took about 8 months. And it's really just finished in the last few days to find out what is going on. What do the temperatures say over as many sites as possible in New South Wales has been happening as far as temperature goes over the past 100, 120, 150 years, as long as there are observation readings to find out. So I did these tabulations, I downloaded the figures onto a spreadsheet. It became a very large spreadsheet, and I found that there were 88 sites in New South Wales which had long-term readings, so they were of great antiquity. You could go back a long time with them. Other places had shorter terms, but 88 had good long-term reliable readings, according to the Bureau of Meteorology. Some of them were places which were very popular towns many years ago, but were still being read. Other major population centres are younger, like on the coast. There weren't as many about 100 years ago. The coastal areas became more popular later on, so there are a bit fewer of those. I decided to divide it into inland and coastal and do studies on both. I decided to separate towns from Sydney, the city, to see if there might be a difference between Sydney and the country areas. I decided to do a grand super summary of all 88 to find out what the New South Wales experience is in global warming based on the evidence, the statistical bureau observations over 100, 120, 150 years. I thought it'd be good to publish this, but before that happens, I would like somebody to do this same study for Queensland as well too, so we get the Queensland experience. Maybe somebody here might be interested in doing it for Queensland, or might know somebody who likes doing this sort of thing. It can be very relaxing if you're knowing what you're doing and seeing the picture come together. I would like someone to do it for Victoria as well. I've done the New South Wales experience.
We want the temperatures and...
Temperatures and the graphs and charts, as I'm going to show you. In time, I would like to see the whole of Australia done, so we have a report card for the whole of Australia on global warming with a question mark. Is it happening? And if it's happening, why is it happening?
Have you done the 18.6 year cycle on the moon?
No, I haven't done the 18.6 year cycle on the moon. Somebody else can do that. I'll leave that to somebody else.
Oh, when we move there.
That's where the major flooding comes in.
Haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
So, I would like to see that, and then I'd like to see this go worldwide, and people do this study on their Bureau of Meteorology observations in many other countries of the world, for which it can be done, because it gets very interesting. Now, the argument for those who usually believe in global warming say that a gas, carbon dioxide, which is only 1/600th of the atmosphere, is the cause of global warming. A gas which is only 1/600th of the atmosphere is probably not going to have a great deal of effect, may not be statistically significant. And of course, as we know, who've thought about it, if carbon dioxide increases, then the plants love it and they gobble it up and they flourish, and they'll gobble up that extra carbon dioxide until we have an equilibrium. So we'll get more agriculture, more crops, and so on. So let's have a look at the chart. I think we have to go to maybe enable content. go up the top. They're the readings, which you could see on there, the readings, and these are the graphs. So we start off with the first one for New South Wales. These are all New South Wales, but I have done Melbourne and I have done Brisbane. We're going to show you those, and we're going to show you the super summary of all New South Wales. I've done the islands for New South Wales, and I've done the coastal areas and the inland sites where there are observations. So we'll go down to the tabulations again. First of all, we have the maximums, the Armidale maximum for each month of each year starting in 1871. And over here is the median for the year in column O, and then the moving 11-year average of the median. So we have a moving, more reliable, slower moving figure. If it's more reliable, go further down. Further down. And then coming in here we have a 50-year moving average as well too. 20 degrees for a long time, 50-year moving average. So we go further down. These are the maximums, and then go further down. And below all of these are the minimums. So I did graphs for the maximum for each capital city, each town, observation site, and I did the graph for the minimums of each observation site, each town. And I also did an average of the two. So I did an average of the maximum and the minimum for each city or town. So let's go right up to the top to the graphs, and we'll look at the Armidale results. The Armidale result, the blue line, is moving 11-year average. You can see there it was about 20.4, and here it's nearly 20.5. So it's gone down, it's gone up 20.5, it's fluctuated down and up. Sometimes this happens because they move the observation centre. Sometimes they move it to somewhere else. May not always be the same place. The trend line for the blue has been slightly going up, but it would be an increase of about half a degree in 100 years. The red line is the moving 50-year average. So the moving 50-year average here is much the same as it was here. So the moving 50-year average hasn't moved much. It's gone down and it's come back up again. On the minimums, the blue line is the moving 11-year average. As you can see, somehow, for some reason on this, it went over 8 degrees up there. It's gone down to just below 6 degrees, according to the readings. And here it's gone up to near 8 degrees, and here the minimum's gone down. So let's go across to the next country town, beyond Armidale.
Sheet 2?
No, not sheet 2, this goes sideways. This goes a long way along, goes sideways. And we come to Balranald, the town of New South Wales. And there you can see the results on the blue line being the moving 11-year average since 1915. In about 1915, it was on 25, then it went down, and it's come up to where it's about the same, nearly the same. So, all the towns have a different story. They're not identical. In the country areas, you find there's similarity in the out west of New South Wales, where it gets hot. The trend line has stayed fairly flat for Balranald, and the trend line for the minimums has shown a slight rise. The 50-year average has gone up a bit towards the end. Let's go down to the third graph down. And that's the average of the maximum and the minimum since whatever it was, 1915. And it shows it's gone down. The readings have gone down and they've come up again. The moving average of the maximum and minimum shows it's gone up compared to the beginning by about 0.175 of a degree in 100 years. Let's go back up to the top again. I'll explain what these are. Move over to the right a bit further. So these are the highest out of any 11-year period, the high levels, the highest months. And it shows back in 1939 there was 38 degrees for Balranald, was the highest the maximum reached for a particular month, and that kept the record for 11 years. But it hasn't had a maximum that high since. The minimums went down, there it was high. In 1939 there was a minimum there. There was a minimum that was fairly low in 1999, around about then. And there's the minimum, the record for the minimum over the past 11 years. So it goes up. What's this next town? A town called Baraba. Don't know if any... Let's go over one more. Yeah. Can't see what town that is.
Oh, this is Baraba.
We did that one. Oh, further over.
Oh, you want to keep going to the next one?
And this is Bathurst. Bathurst, you will see the moving long-term 11. Go back. Go a bit far and go up a bit.
Put it up by itself.
Yep.
You'll see.
That's Forbes. Oh.
No, we want Bathurst. Oh, it's gone right over to the right.
Yeah, it jumped on its own.
Go back to Bathurst.
It's a computer.
Way over there.
This one? Double? It's not like crap. Where'd it
No,
go?
it's way back over D.
It
Somewhere about
jumped,
D.
it jumped all by itself.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay. That went that far.
Put them across the bar at the bottom.
You need more lessons.
Yeah.
Well, look at that one then. Deniliquin.
Yeah.
Deniliquin.
It's there.
There it was 26, was the maximum on the moving 11-year average. Hasn't gone as high as that again. It's gone down. The long-term trend shows that the maximum is going down for the maximums. But you'll notice the minimum is rising. It started with a low though, for some reason, down there. Could have been because they moved the observation site to somewhere else, put it in the office where they cook the sausages, so it gets off from the stove and it goes up. Go back to Bathurst, because go right back to near the left-hand side, the Bathurst one, because I think the Bathurst one shows that the minimums are rising.
No, there's a slider on the right hand side.
Yeah, this here.
That's only T, you've got to go back to about D.
No, hold on. I'm just trying to find how to do that. Don't rush me. I've got to try and...
Come on, hurry up.
Big towns here, is that right?
There's no scroll.
Where are the kids?
This might be Bathurst. Go up a bit so we can see the town.
It's gone by itself.
Hands off.
Further over.
That's cool to see.
It's only gone to here.
Keep going. Keep going.
See.
So you can see they're all different. They all have these different stories for some reason, according to the Bureau of Meteorology. Look at that one, Cessna.
Cessna. Yeah.
Stop!
How about when the casino? Hold on, no, let's do Canberra.
Canberra's called Bobby.
Yeah.
There's no change there.
See this?
Cessna.
Maybe.
Stop at Cessna.
What are our keys?
Go to Cessna.
Right there, you get it.
Alright.
Oh, I hate laptops and shit.
I said Canberra's not.
So,
Cessna.
there is Cessna. So you can see Cessna, the moving trend line has been going down. The minimums have been going down in Cessna. The maximum have been going up, but maybe because that was a low reading, causing the beginning point to be a very low point. So, any questions on that so far? Any comments or questions?
That's all it
Do you have the amount of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere of those songs?
Let's go over to sheet 6.
Depends on how many
Sheep,
cows
did you say sheep 6 or sheep?
Sheet 6.
Brisbane?
And we'll look at Brisbane. Here are the Brisbane figures. The blue is the moving 11-year average,
4 or 10.
Brisbane.
Since 1898.
But that's over about 3 observation sites. Because when they got to here, they shifted it, so the average went down. And when it got down to there, they shifted it again, so it's gone up. So Brisbane's unfortunately not reliable.
We've got Marburg and we've got Stapleton. The two. Marburg's extremely cold compared to Stapleton.
Well, this shows there's been an influence on that because they've shifted the sites.
Quite often it's either the post office or the airport.
Yeah.
The minimums are even more pronounced and unreliable. The grey line is the annual maximum
In
or
which
minimum.
case, wouldn't you just take a median, because obviously you've got a correlation between your highs and your lows, and it indicates that it is because it's been moved.
Yes.
And so then you would just have to go by a median.
Well, that's what these numbers are down here. In
There are the high points. If you go over here and we'll look at the high points. The maximums for Brisbane. The highest one was a month of 31 degrees and long-term 11-year maximum of 31 degrees in a month, down to a 28. Hasn't gone as high as that again. The lowest of the maximums, the lowest of the maximums shows the lowest of the maximums is rising. The minimums show the highest of the minimums is rising, and go down a bit to the next chart down. And there you have the minimums of the minimums have been rising as well too. That's a fair gradient, those minimums.
It's no older than 31, mate. So what does that
Well,
say
these
maximum?
are going back in
Averages,
time.
That's a monthly average,
Okay.
not a daily one, a monthly average. So let's go way over to the left and we'll look at something that's got very reliable figures.
Maybe push home.
Go right over to the left and we'll look at a place that's got very reliable figures.
You going?
Yes, and go up.
Canberra.
Sydney. We'll look at the Sydney figures. Go over to the left. Sydney? What do you notice of the moving 11-month maximum for Sydney? It's been rising. Trend line is rising and it's been steadily rising, fairly reliable. Only one observation point.
But that's probably to do with all the concrete they're pouring in there.
I was going to
Get
say
rid of all the bloody
lies.
trees and all that
You're
sort
getting
of
the idea.
Buildings and-
You're getting the idea now.
There's a lot of
Why-
influence.
You're getting the idea of what's been reflected in these statistics.
I think it's the glass.
Yeah, that's
And
reflecting.
you'll notice the minimums
That's what Peter thinks.
have a steeper curve, a little bit of a steeper curve, particularly since about 1960, 1970, the curve has become more steeper than the maximums. Go down to the combined one, the combined total. So that's the average of the maximum and minimum over a moving 11-year period, and you'll see from this point it started to rise more significantly, and these annual figures in grey are rising more significantly. Let's go up.
We need to pay carbon credits to the Rothschild banks. I'll make it all go away.
Yeah, that's it.
So let's go over to the right, see what's
Right
happening.
anymore?
Yeah, a lot of it's got to be too.
Third, the long-term maximums and minimums have been getting higher in Sydney over the past 40 or 50 years than what they used to be before that. So Sydney observation statistics would indicate that in Sydney there is global warming happening. But do you think it's because of a gas that's 1/600th of the atmosphere?
I don't know, there's a lot of hot air in those people.
Or might it be something else?
else?
We'll come back to that. Let's go over the sheet.
Well, the Mardi Gras on today.
It's not. Let's go over the sheet now.
Horrible, huh?
That's looking better.
He's got it.
It's not coming through clearly, but the points I would like to point out is that the minimums appear to be rising more than the maximums are. for a lot of places. And of the grand summary of 88 cities and towns, the minimums on long-term average are rising more than the maximums. Why do you think that might be?
People running their air conditioners.
That,
I
That's
think,
right.
this,
Yeah.
I think it would be the sea levels rising.
population.
Hey, that's not very funny.
Electricity
I was
consumption.
gonna say.
My observation
TVs.
is that as you get a conglomeration of more buildings which capture the heat
They
of the
hold it.
sun and they heat up, and they hold their heat into the night and give off their heat in the night times for those areas for which they're reading become a bit higher.
And roads.
So it appears that the observations are because the observations are being made in areas where there is a
Increase in population.
sink, a heat sink effect in that city or town or wherever.
As opposed to a general global
Country
warming.
or something.
Yes, as opposed to general global warming, because there are places that are going down as well
So if
too.
we were getting figures like this out in the scrub where there's nobody, you'd probably find
Have a look at those on here when you get a
temperatures
chance.
there.
Have a look at those when you can. Another reason is because a number of the observation sites are being placed at airports. What effect might that have?
Tarmac.
The tarmac heats up
Yeah, the jet
and
wash.
holds the heat into the night and gives off heat.
Yeah, and the
You find this at Maruya, where the observation site is near the, not far from the tarmac, and you can see that there's been a rise in the temperature over a period of time. Wilberforce Air Base is another one that shows considerable warming up.
One of the things those don't show is cloud cover.
No, this doesn't go into cloud cover.
So, you know, the exposure to sun isn't shown in these graphs.
So what's coming through in the temperature statistics is the fact that
It's not taking variables into account.
the population centres are heating up because of all the building materials absorbing the heat and giving a higher reading by a degree or two. Now we can't see it on this graph, because it's not coming through clearly, but on the super account it shows over about 100 years that the global warming average over 88 sites has been about 0.3, 0.4 of a degree in 100 years, which will lead to global warming of 3 degrees in about 1,000 years, 3 or 4 degrees in 1,000 years. And gee, it goes up and down by that, more than that every day. So what does it mean? Nothing much.
Is it an answer?
No, but they've actually changed the term from global warming to global change now, so, you know. they're-
Climate change.
Climate change, sorry.
Well, climate change can be upwards or downwards and long term, it can just balance out.
All we
So what does
need,
it mean?
we need a building heat tax.
That'll be available, you can have a look at that, that's up on the internet, we can give you the website for it, and maybe you'll be able to see these super graphs more clearly of the 88 sites, all averaged together. Go over to the left.
Sadly, like any statistics, though, you can make statistics say whatever you like.
Wait a minute, gonna stop
They're the
concrete
readings.
jungle.
Going for 88 sites on the maximum and the minimums, and these are the moving averages. So you can study that, but I would like to see somebody do it for Queensland, and somebody do it for Victoria. Maybe we could publish a book, a nice coffee table book, that it would sell well in many country towns, because many people might like to get their country town statistics and have it as a coffee table book. Also, this lends itself well to evidence in a court case. So if anybody wants to do a contractual civil bets on global warming, we've got the evidence here for where you can do it. And if anybody knows anyone who's got cases related to global warming and contentions thereof, well, I'm happy to supply the evidence for their area. So,
Brilliant.
let's get some things moving on global warming, and that finishes global warming.